Good day, everyone, and welcome to the open conversation. This is our first of quite a few events we've got planned live on LinkedIn and Twitter. And today we have the honor of speaking to one of the founders of a legendary app in South Africa called EskomSePush. And we're going to be chatting with Dan Wells. Dan, welcome to the open conversation today.
Thank you so much, Renee.
Yeah, we're looking forward to hear the story. You started EskomSePush as a side hustle back in the day, and it became your main hustle, and it's something you're pursuing full time now. Like, where did it start? How did you start? What is the story behind EskomSePush?
Sure. Yeah, it's been quite a journey. So it's Herman, Maritz, and myself. Funnily enough, coming up to December now, it will be 8 years since we started this. So we started this in December 2014 as a little side project, a little fun thing, using an app called Push Bullet, which was gaining some traction at the time, and it could send us push notifications when we would be affected by load shedding. And it was super interesting for us, for Hammond and myself, where it could let us know when is our power going off during our December holidays. And then went into January, and Hammond's like, hey, there was a phrase going around in 2015 at the time. Is there an app for that? And Hammond was like, hey, he knows how to build apps. We've been like playing with Cordova and PhoneGap at the time, and Ionic had just been released. And Hammond built an app in a couple of weekends. We got mentioned in the Ionic release notes. It was quite fun. And then, a couple of years later, we rebuilt the app in Flutter. We've had a number of interesting events. We've gone from 250,000 users in 2015 to 6 million users, 7 million users now. We've many things.
Incredible. So you and Herman, like, where did you meet? Did you work together, or did you meet at Varsity? Or what is the story there?
Yeah, so we were actually part of a company called Intersect, and we were working on some of the internet banking apps and some of the security and some of the original internet banking apps back in from 2012. So I joined Intersect in 2012, and Herman joined that before. He was one of the original sort of engineers that joined the company, we were building and helping build out some of the products that Intersect was making, and because of that, had some experience in mobile, and understanding mobile and understanding push notifications as well.
Yeah. So Intersect was a growing company at the time, and I mean, everybody involved in a journey in early days of a startup of that scale would know that it takes a lot of time. Where did you and Herman find the time and energy to work on something like this?
I think it was like a project that was grown out of need at the time, right? So it was very interesting and very relevant for us because as both South Africans, as any other South African, we're affected by load shedding. So the app was born out of that need. It was important for us to know that when we were affected by load shedding, and out of that we're like, hey, this is quite interesting. Maybe we can make an app for this and we can release it to everyone else because maybe it will be helpful for them as well.
And the
that's how it
schedules were a mess, right?
Yeah, I'm glad you've got the slide here. So this is a number of different schedules. In the middle is Nelson Mandela Bay. In the top left, I'm not actually too sure. Bottom left is eThekwini, which is different now because they're not affected between stage 1 and 3. And then bottom right, I think, is Mfuleni, which is one of our favorites. And that's how the hell do you have less load shedding considering the stages go higher? So there's like some massive confusion. And that's our ultimate value proposition is we take this mess and we translate it into something that's super simple to answer the question, when will I be affected by load shedding? Yeah. And if we can answer that question for you as quick as possible, then like that's us. That's our app.
Yeah. So Dan, I mean, those early days, it was Excel sheets that were flying around like Google Sheets. It was a mess, right? We just saw some of those slides. Someone had to actually translate that into database entries in order for this app to process. So So, firstly,
Yeah.
who did that? Who was brave enough to push through that mundane? And I think in general, when we're building a startup, at one point or another, it gets really mundane. So how did you push through the mundane part? So who did it? How did you push through it?
Hmm. Uh, they all captured by hand, really. Some of them are in Excel. Some of like which are very great, where you can copy paste them and you can do some interesting translation on them and put them into our format. Some of them are pictures of Excel, so like literally like a cell phone picture of someone's Excel. Some of them are pictures of someone's Excel that they printed out and then potentially scanned.
Mm,
And so they're not quite straight. So even image recognition doesn't work so well on them. So it's come down to us, Hammond and
yeah.
myself, typically uh, with a bit of a whiskey or a gin or some wine to help pass the time, and then a ruler and a highlighter, and then work out the pattern and capture them. And yeah, some of them are literally that they're painstakingly captured so that we can translate them into a standard format. Um, yeah, the municipalities don't have APIs for this kind of stuff.
Yeah. And sometimes don't even know. I wonder how many people that actually responsible for flicking the switch are using your app to know when they should be switching the power off.
I'd love to know. I'd love to know. um,
So, uh, Dan, this app has been around for a few years. Like how did it change over time?
yeah. Yeah, so 2015 when we first launched, it was in Ionic, which is I think it was like Angular, uh, which translates into like PhoneGap Cordova, which is cross compiled into native, and it was really janky, and quite horrible if you look at the screenshots and how it's changed over time. Then yeah, 2015, as we improved it, we learned from the user experience, from the input from our users, to make it as simple as possible for answering that question: when will I be affected? And then yeah, end of 2015, funnily enough, load shedding ended. Um, on a couple of days after we won App of the Year award in 2015, it was the highlight of our year. We won the App of the Year awards. And I think 2 days later, load shedding ended. Like it was like done,
Mm,
and went away for 2 years. And then yeah, 2018, we had it was like a tease of load shedding in the middle of the year, and I was on holiday at my in-laws' house, and I thought, hey, maybe we should rebuild this. Like, I don't think load shedding is coming back, but I wanted to learn, get into the world of mobile app development because I was part of a big e-commerce company at the time, and I was thinking potentially it could be advantageous for them. And I asked, what are the interesting frameworks besides jumping into something that's native? And one of my colleagues said Flutter. Should give it a go. The popular sort of cross compilation framework at the time was React Native, but there was this new up and coming one called Flutter, which looked really cool, and I jumped into that. And I remember the number because it was really quick. It took me 40 hours to rebuild the app in 2018. I launched it.
wow.
Actually, no one like downloaded it, no one used it because obviously we had no load shedding at the time. And then end of December, like end of 2018, December, bam, load shedding kicked in again, and we were kind of ready, just through luck. Um, yeah, 2018, 2020, 2021, 2022. Yeah, record breaking year in terms of load shedding. This
Mm.
graph is quite interesting, and we've had a yeah, but we've helped a bunch of people this year in terms of managing in how they plan around load shedding.
Mm. So let's dive a bit into that. I mean, the app started out as let's inform friends and family of when load shedding happens,
Mm.
towards this cultish following of almost 6 million people now using it to see what happens. But it doesn't stop at the app. You also do things outside of the app. You help other people plan. You've got an API. Maybe share a bit about that.
Yeah. So one of the things that we've built now is Ask My Street, and the reason for that, and that's something we've focused quite a lot of energy into from the beginning of this year, is that a lot of our users send us emails, and they say, "Why is our power off?" or "Why is my power not off?" or "Hey, you didn't tell me it's load shedding, and my power's off." And then we would get emails as well, saying, "Do you know any idea why our water is off?" Or, "You potentially might have some inroads into the municipality. Can you tell us like who we could contact at the municipality to find out why our water's off? Or why is the water brown? Or what does that smell? Whose dog is that is barking?" Like potentially you could try and find out. And obviously it's Hammond and myself. And back then, this was our side hustle. We had full-time jobs, and we couldn't possibly have answered all those questions. So out of the need of answering these questions that people had, we built out our community called Ask My Street. And it's a hyper-local platform where people can ask questions and start threads in their neighborhoods, and they can get some questions answered. So, all of the questions that I mentioned before. It's like, why is our power off? Why is it not off? Hey, it's not load shedding. What does that smell? Has anyone seen my pet? I've got some cupcakes that I sell out of my garage. Like it's born into this really interesting, like hyper local platform, so people can solve these interesting problems. And it's all come down to uh, literally Hammond and myself getting about 20,000 emails.
Oh wow, that's a lot of emails to work through.
Yeah.
And it's probably mark all as read, move on to the next thing, and go on to build this feature, right?
You will see. I don't know if you use an older version of the app and you maybe use the contact us feature. We'd put in a bunch of metadata into the emails. So we'd put in like the area ID, which would include your municipality and your block
Yes.
and your suburb name. And then using some of the Google email filters, we would batch them into groups, and then we could see some trends. So we couldn't possibly respond to all of them, but we could see, ooh, there's a lot of people complaining from Scottborough in KZN. Potentially, there's something happening in Scottborough. And then we could see, oh, okay, maybe it was a schedule issue that we had captured it wrong, or something had changed. Is what often happens, is suburbs actually change between blocks. So maybe Scottborough changed from like a block 10 to block 9, or hey, there's a local fault, and then we can either email all of them at the same time and say like, hey, maybe try this, or we've noticed that there's a local fault. That's what we used to do. Now we just recommend that people use Ask My Street, because
Yeah,
then they can
and
chat amongst each other.
and it's amazing, Dan, because what you've built is you've built a network of 6 million people that provide real time information on what's happening around them, right?
That's it. There's a I suppose people say there's a lot of different ways to gain access to these communities. So I know everyone in South Africa, more than likely, who lives in a community or in a street, there's more than likely a WhatsApp group, right? So, and maybe at a bigger level, there's a Facebook community that's part of your suburb. They may or may not be public. The Facebook groups, they're more than likely private. And then your WhatsApp groups are 100% private, and they're massively exclusionary. In that, sometimes people move into a neighborhood, you won't even know that WhatsApp group exists until someone comes across, or maybe you need to do the secret handshake across the road, make friends with someone, and then they say, "Oh, you're nice. Do you want to join our WhatsApp group?" So it's exclusionary. How does that person who's now part of that neighborhood feel like they're part of that neighborhood? And how do they get questions answered? So maybe, like if I think of my neighborhood, we've got a handful of really, really helpful neighbors. And whenever there's an issue, they get involved and they say, hey, I called the city of Cape Town, I logged the fault. And the city came back to me half an hour later and they said, yes, we're aware of it. And we're going to send someone to fix it. And then they send an update later in the day and they say, cool, it's done. Now they've informed everyone in the neighborhood, and that's hugely massive. Like that's super helpful for me. I don't need to call the city. I don't need to all 100 of us who live in the same population density. Like we don't have to all call the city, get the same information, put load in the city, put load in their call center. It's just one person who can do that. So Ask My Street is very much that, is how can we empower those really helpful people, like our local street heroes, so that they can have a bit of a platform to share that information and be helpful, but not in these exclusionary private communities, but to do it in more of a public way.
That's awesome. I think any of us in South Africa can relate to that issue of, multiple, because the reality is something goes down, everybody phones the municipality at the same time, right? Now the call
Yes,
center has the backlog, they have to reply to everyone, and everybody feels like service is bad because they're not designed to cope with the amount of traffic that happens. So on that
that's
point,
right.
I mean, if you engaged any municipalities to run any kind of pilot with a direct integration into their reporting systems, or do you see that as a future opportunity?
Uh, we have. So we've had a conversation with conversations with a handful of municipalities, and we typically have really good conversations, and we say, oh, we could do these things, and we always say that we want to operate in the public. So we don't want to have anything that's custom, or we don't want to have a specific built partnership or integration. We want to operate with public information, and we want to push it publicly. Um, so if a municipality can share more information publicly, we can grab it and we can push it. But we have conversations with mayors, with some of the higher up senior managers, executives in certain companies, and we have these conversations about public information, and they're typically quite good. And then after that meeting, things go quiet because I think priorities potentially change within the municipality, or because there isn't a specific mandate to actually get it done. The relationship tends to fizzle, even though we're in a very friendly way gonna help them, handle the load.
Yeah.
As an example, one of the municipalities that we met, they let us know that literally when there is load shedding, um, they they get so many calls on the hour that they will just mark all of those issues as closed. They won't respond. So because
Jeez.
they get massive spikes into their call center and
Mm,
also into their contact centers and their ticketing systems, but on the hour,
mm,
so like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, whenever load shedding starts at this time, they get spikes of tickets and spikes of calls, and
mm,
they just mark them all done within that
mm,
minute. So they don't even acknowledge them. They don't read them
sure.
because they can't. They don't have the capacity to deal with them.
Mm,
So our value proposition is um, give us good information.
yeah.
We push it out to users within South Africa, and because we have good information, which is reliable, accurate,
Mm,
and timely, they don't
mm,
contact the municipalities,
mm,
so that the municipality can actually focus on bigger problems.
yeah. That's very interesting, and definitely, I think lots of scope for this to expand in the future. Just have to find that one champion that can help you roll this out and show the benefit, I believe. So, but I
That's
suppose
it.
it will come in time. So
That's it.
Dan, moving on to making this your main hustle. You guys started it as a
Yeah.
bit of a pet project. In time, it grew. How, at what point did you and Herman say, okay, it's time for us to take this thing seriously? Let's quit our jobs and pursue this opportunity full time.
Yeah. I think a series of interesting events, and 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 it's kind of worked out well. So last year, we were chatting about it, maybe even joking about it, and it sort of worked out with Hammond that we had this opportunity where Hammond could jump into it full time, and 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 we just took it. So it was a huge risk, and a big opportunity. So we said, okay, cool, Herman, it's sort of working out in terms of his life at the time. Can you and will you work on this full time? And let's have some good meetings and some good workshops about like what would be the goals of that. What would it look like, and how long are we going to do it for? So we started off this year, 2022, actually in a co-working space in Cape Town, which we rented out for 2 days, and we had a bit of a strategy session. We're like, okay, cool. If Herman works on this for 6 months, what will it look like? What are some of the things that we would want to get out? And after 6 months, which was the timeline we gave ourselves, we said we're going to have a reassessment. Do we continue for another 6 months? And we'll relook at those goals. So we set ourselves some very strict goals, some very tough ones as well to achieve. And hitting those 6 months, we achieved the goals. So it was like, do we continue with this for 6 months? It's like, yes. And the outcome of it was also, should Dan join as well? And the answer to that was also yes. So yeah, here I am. Now it's more of a case of what does our run rate look like, um, and when do we need to reassess? So we're actually in an interesting time now. It's November. We're a month before when we need to have this, where we're having this meeting again, another strategy session, and we're going to reassess what our goals are and how we did in the last 6 months, and whether we're going to continue on this for longer. And we're putting our big thinking hats on. Is it Ask My Street? Is it more load shedding features? Because like any other South African, I can assure you, we dislike load shedding, and we want it to go away, and would love to be a part of the solution. But we do know it's going to be around for at least another year.
So I mean, speaking about that, making it your main hustle, obviously it needs to generate income of some sorts in order to cover some of your fees, not only the cost of keeping everything going, but also, you and Herman spending your time. We've got a question here from LinkedIn. And anybody on LinkedIn, you can post a question and we'll see if we can get to them. Alvin asking, you make most of your money off Google ads, right? What kind of user volume do you need to start earning decently on that?
It's a tough answer. So it depends, and yes. So maybe if I take it back a little bit before I answer the question, like the reason why Hammond and myself have jumped into this, and it's something that works with our lives right now. So it's like it works with our lives where we are currently right now. So it works well with our like what we want to do day to day, what we want as a work-life balance, what we want as family time. As one of the big things that motivated my decision of doing this was that I'm recently a dad, and my daughter's going to be turning 12 weeks on Friday, and it was one of the big driving factors behind, hey, you could do this, work for yourself, not have anyone report to you, and not report to anyone either, and have a really great family life, especially in the first couple of weeks of our little girl's life. I can get that really great bond, and it works really well with Hammond as well, with him and his family, that he gets to be, and well, actually both of us, we get to be like really involved with family, which is awesome. Yeah, to jump in advertising, yes, it is the majority of our income, and it proverbially like keeps our lights on, I guess, is the joke. It's not ludicrous, and it's like a dark art, and we really crap at it. And not, you can't compare any two adverts. So any two apps. So because different apps have different types of inventory that they sell. Is it a banner? Is it a native banner? Is it a fixed size banner? Is it an interstitial type ad, which is a full screen? Is it an app start app? Is it an app close app? And they're all different. And then depending on what market you're in as well, your ads in terms of what you publish are more expensive or less expensive because they are either in more or less demand. And actually for EskomSePush, because we are quite a big publisher, our adverts are quite cheap because we show quite a lot, if that makes any sense. So the less ads you show, the more expensive they are because it's like supply and demand game. And depending on the type of ads that you show. So I know of someone who's got an app that's got 300 daily users, and those users use it for about an hour every day, which is a lot. And he's also ad supported, and he's getting a decent ad revenue to sustain his life. Like,
Okay, so it's really hard to predict, right? I mean, if that's your model, it's really difficult to say like, okay, I'm going to make this amount of money if I switch on ads. I mean, it's literally like you're going to have to switch it on and see what happens.
That's it, yeah. Switch it on and see what happens, and then also, yeah, everyone's gonna like. It's funny. We only added ads into the app in 2019. Before that, we seriously hate ads, and we're still not a very big fan of them. But it does actually keep our lights on. That's why in the app we've got the function of an in-app purchase, and I think it's 30 rand, and you don't have any ads.
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome. Jason's actually asking here, can you send me push when the petrol price will increase, please? And then he followed it up with saying, let's just say I need to know when to fill up my generator.
I think there's no time like the present, Jason. That's a big gamble.
Awesome, Dan. Let's chat a bit about users. I mean, recently there was a press release saying you guys had passed the 5 million user mark, or 5 million download
Yep.
mark. Let's chat about a bit about that, and how do you keep the servers from not frying when 5 million people hit your services?
Yeah. So I think if we look at this year, we've had there we go, 8.4 million users. So that's across 3 different platforms: Apple, Play Store, and the other one. And it's crazy when we send out a push notification. It goes out to close to 9 million devices, and just over 9 million devices, and about 1 million of those click on the push notification immediately. So our infrastructure gets smashed. We go from 30,000 requests per minute to 1.5 million requests per minute. It's over like 40,000 requests per second, and we do that in 30 seconds. It's been a journey, and we've changed the way that our platform looks a couple of times over the years. Actually, I did a talk in 2020 at ScaleConf that highlights what our infrastructure looked like back then, and I did another talk earlier this year at DevConf, which sort of shows what our infrastructure looked then. But now we've actually added in a bunch more things, and it's changed again. But we're a big Google supporter, a big Google infrastructure. So we're Google Cloud Platform, a lot of Firebase, Firestore, but things like other Firebase things, so like Firestore, push notifications, Firebase Auth, remote config, analytics, and then a lot of cloud functions as well. And then a lot of the bulk of our traffic is actually hitting Kubernetes and Google Cloud. And we've got a lot of infrastructure there. That's OpenResty, Varnish, Nginx, Python, Redis, Mongo. It's a lot of different things. And then for monitoring, that's Prometheus, Grafana, and then a lot of the stuff all alerts us through Slack if things are going wrong as well. But it's been a journey. We started off in DigitalOcean. And then we left DigitalOcean because it was getting expensive. We came to the South African cloud provider, which was great. And they supported us for a long time. And then we outgrew them. We went back to DigitalOcean, who we outgrew as well. And we moved to Google Cloud.
Okay, amazing. I recall at the time when there was a lot of a few years ago, there was a lot of unexpected load shedding, and the app would fall over ever
Yes.
now and again, and how people would get mad at you guys. I'm like, this is a free service, people. Like, relax.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. And
I mean, you
interestingly,
probably have gotten your fair share of hate messaging over the years.
we've got an interesting community. um, Lots of people, yeah, lots of opinions, good opinions, bad opinions, lots of people offering for help, which has been really nice actually. And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
it's come down to just a lot of small tweaks here and there to make it to a point where we can scale now,
Yeah,
for not too expensive, from say 10,000 requests per minute to 2 million requests per minute in 30
yeah.
seconds,
Wow,
and not miss a transaction or a request.
wow. That's
It's
impressive.
incredible, and we do it
I
for
haven't seen
cheap
the
as
app
well.
go down in a very long time, so it's definitely working.
Yeah, we
Um,
had some massive amounts of errors about 2 weeks ago, and it's because I clicked the wrong button. But that's the big problem now is the humans,
yes,
not the tech.
that's
Yeah.
that's fixable mostly, and
Mm,
unless you have your intern Jeff running the show, then. Um,
that's right. Yeah, we're still looking for them.
Dan, tell me a bit about what you learned so far building EskomSePush.
Yeah, lots of things. I think one of the main ones there is developer taste for having problems. I think as any, I still can't believe it sort of matches my life in terms of any entrepreneur. But as an entrepreneurial mind, you need to think about what problems there are, and develop a taste for solving them.
Mm,
Um, because you can actually form a bubble where things are good, and you're content. Um, you're in a rhythm, you're in a pattern. You know that Tuesdays is sprint planning day, and I
mm,
don't know, Fridays are review day or something, and you have a stand up every day, and you've got the same problems, and it's the same users. And you can get into that rhythm, and you can say like, okay, cool, well, this is the time of year, or this is the type of season, or whatever. And you get to a point where you're like, is it interesting enough for me right now, or would I like to actually branch out and go like, hey, like we keep on getting contacts about, or when I keep on having these conversations, I keep on getting little inklings that there is an issue here. Let me just find out if there is an issue there, and potentially I can do something, can make someone's life better.
mm,
um, and get involved with that community. Find out, is it something that actually they want. um, don't go and build something for a community where they don't want it.
awesome.
So find out that the community actually wants it before you build something. But I think this has been one of our biggest findings, is that, um, like have a passion for solving things,
Mm,
and don't be too grumpy when it doesn't actually solve it,
mm,
or people don't want it.
mm,
Or maybe you need to iterate on it. Like, so don't be too attached to it. Because sometimes
mm,
your own solutions are problems as well.
mm. That's very interesting,
Um,
and I think a lot
yeah,
of founders can benefit from that because at the end of the day, building a startup's all about problems, right? Solving problems.
that's it. Yeah, yeah, and
Mm,
you've got to know that the problems that you're solving are going to be ones that, people want solved, and
mm,
potentially people are going to pay for.
mm.
I,
Awesome.
I guess the monetary thing is like, yeah, if you're operating a public free app like ourselves, that's something that's, um, yeah, that's something that's like we still don't really know how to do.
Yeah.
I think that's also a problem. We want to be maybe this is a funny little anecdote. Like Herman yesterday, he said, Dan, this is a great feature. It's a really great user feature. It's going to help people. It's going to make them, you know, get the information that they need quicker than they've had it before, which is awesome, right? That's what we want to do. But at the end of the day, it will make us less money because actually the users will use the app less.
Yes.
So it's a conundrum, right? Because we're ad supported, the better features that we provide to get people to get the information that they need quicker means that we will get less money because they'll see less ads. So we're terrible business people. We just build the feature. We're like, hey, no, people are going to find this really helpful, and we continue with it. But it is something to think about. It's an interesting one.
So speaking of that, I mean, there's a lot of other load shedding apps, and Jacques on LinkedIn is asking, do you have any competitors or expect any competitors in the future?
There is another app that is available, um, and yeah, they also they've been operating for a number of years. It's quite interesting, actually. We like having that competition. It's quite fun. Back in 2015, we used to have a competitor called Gridwatch, which was powered by News 24. And that was a great competition, and it was like a bit of a public rivalry as well, which we had a lot of fun with, and we're still like pretty good friends with a bunch of the people that were running that platform at the time, because we had such a good like a fun little rivalry with them. But yeah, they are competitors, and they do operate. One of the municipalities also has an app that they run, um, but nothing that's there's lots of different variants of sort of Ask My Street, but nothing that's quite like Ask My Street.
Interesting. So, Dan, let's chat a bit about trains. Firstly, load shedding. Like, what are your opinions on load shedding? Are we going to face load shedding for a long time still? What do you see happening in that space?
it's it's an interesting one as well, because actually our main goal for this year is build a sustainable company when there is no load shedding. And the last 3 months have been tricky because there has been a lot of load shedding. But that is our actual goal: is to build a sustainable company that can keep Hammond and myself, and potentially more people in future operating, as the company with when there is no load shedding. So those are some of the avenues that we're going down. But yeah, load shedding, it's going to be around for at least another year. There's a couple of big things that are happening, and I'm definitely not the right person to talk about them. But there are a couple of like big, government level projects that are underway that are potentially going to help. But yeah, I'm definitely not the expert on power production or distribution.
Yeah.
I'm pretty good at sharing when your power will be out, though.
Staying in your lane, that's good, Dan. And
Yeah,
in
that's
terms
it.
of and in terms of technology, playing a role in communities, I mean, Facebook's been around forever trying to do this, but they never really seem to get it right in South Africa, at least. WhatsApp has just rolled out a community feature where you can group chats into a community to have like one central announcement channel, in a community. Uh, could kind of start playing in that space, but once again, like you said earlier, a bit exclusive. Where do you see community technology going in the future? Like what is your take on that?
Mm. It's I'm actually not too sure. It's definitely there's a need, right? There is this problem where, and I think maybe we've been thinking about it quite a lot since COVID times, is that, and there's more people remote working now as well, is that like we have these communities, right? So there's our neighborhoods, there's our like maybe our hobbies, maybe our the type of car we drive, maybe it's our work community, and then there's micro communities within work as well. But there's often communities that you can't find. So there's, or they're closed off. So our thought is like, how do we provide a space where people can find these communities, so that they can engage and be like feel like they're like a part of something, um, but do it in like a nice, healthy, positive way,
Mm.
that is not just about complaining as well.
Mm.
And it's tricky. It is tricky. Uh,
Mm.
we don't want to be a platform where, or a community platform where people just complain, and it is a tough one because it's typically problems or outages. But
Mm.
if we can be positive or support the local heroes and say and boost them in their communities, then we're winning. Like if
Mm.
Rainier, if you're the most active, community member in your WhatsApp group, like I would love to promote you to say that, like, hey, Rainier is incredibly helpful for these 50 people that
Mm.
are around him, and how do we celebrate you and your helpfulness?
Mm.
Um,
And I think
I don't know.
that's an awesome idea, Dan. And for anybody that's done any effort to figure out how the municipal system works in South Africa, we have
Mm,
ward councillors, which we vote for every 5 years,
yes.
and that ward councillor then has a group of people that actually forms a ward committee that meets with this ward councillor once a month. And in most municipalities, those people actually get a stipend for attending those meetings. And if you
Mm,
can find these community members that are really helpful and really good at sharing information and actually identify them on this platform and then start linking them with the ward councillors,
yeah,
I believe we'll see a lot more accountability. We'll see a lot more flow of information, and we'll see a lot of people less upset or more upset, depending on how well or bad the municipality is performing.
totally. No, I agree with that. Like, yeah, maybe it comes down to like hope is not a strategy, right? If you think of it in the tech world or planning for like,
Yeah.
if you plan for Black Friday and you hope that your site's going to stay up, like, sorry, it's not gonna. And if marketing's running a big plan, but like, I think hope is an interesting thing. So how can you remove just the reliance on hope and give someone or a group of people the ability to actually like make a change in a
Mm.
positive way? Um, and usually it's information, right? Information is power. So you're spot on with that, Renier. It's like, how do I contact, who is my ward councillor? What is that committee?
Mm.
Can I visit them? Like, can I have a private conversation, or do, like, how does that process actually work? Like, what is their responsibility? What is their accountability? How much do they get paid?
Mm.
um then I can go, oh, I don't need to complain about this on Facebook. I can actually
Mm.
go to that person and say, it's your job.
Mm.
You need to do this, and I will hold you accountable to it.
Mm.
And these other 100 people, and then there's no hope. There is
Mm.
actual, you're using the process that has been built, and you're following the process. So I think lots of things now, it's like, I don't know. Let me make an example. My internet's down.
Mm.
um, Let me go to Twitter, right? And I'm going to go
Mm.
to Twitter and I'm going to say at, uh, you know, service provider, at fiber provider, at, the mayor of Cape Town, at Cyril, uh, at,
That is push.
Radio 702, at EskomSePush, my fiber is down, and literally everyone just sees that and they're like, have you called them? Did you get a reference number? It's like, no, I didn't. Why did you go to Twitter first? And the reason is because that person didn't know that they had this avenue to say, oh, you could call this number, you get a reference number, it'll probably get fixed in a couple of minutes.
Mm.
Or maybe it's like, oh, you need to turn your router on and off, because there was some maintenance done and it needs to reconnect or something. How do you give someone that ability to solve their problem quickly without having
Mm.
to like at the mayor, for the
Mm.
pothole that's forming outside your road? Like, you can,
Mm.
more than likely call your municipality in some way and log that there's a pothole, and they want to
Mm.
know. Um,
Mm.
They don't know it's there. Like they want to know that it's there, but no one's told them. And maybe
Mm,
your neighbors are just thinking like, oh, but you know what? Rainier's really helpful. He's probably done
mm,
it. He's probably logged
mm, mm.
it. So now you're
No,
relying on hope to get problems solved.
yeah, and I love that thinking. I mean, I live in Stellenbosch, and we have amazing municipality, and whenever you report something, they literally sort it out that same day.
Yeah,
So they they really want to help. It's just people have seem to have given up on providing the information, and I think your platform can play a major role in helping that, and just creating better communication between citizens and their public servants. So
definitely. Information is power, right? And it's like the more you know, the more you can, the better you can solve a problem, right?
yeah. So then just back on something funny. A lot of people actually think that you guys are the official ESCOM app. So how does that normally play out?
I don't get it. I don't understand. Like I suppose there is the name, which we love hate. So we love hate the name EskomSePush. It ultimately comes down to push notifications for ESCOM schedules, and that's how we created the name. But it can be linked with some other things or some cheekiness. Um, but ultimately, it's push notifications. It comes down to we've got a really cool community, and often when we get publicly called out as the power provider, someone will pipe up and say, "Hey, they're not the power provider; they're just the messenger."
Yeah,
And you will see that over the next coming weeks, like we're starting to actually reference a name that we've used before, and that's ESP.
yes,
And we're doing like a gentle introduction of a slight brand change where we add an ESP, and we've got a new domain name as well, esp.info. Um, and the thought there is let's start focusing on ESP instead of EskomSePush so much, and it's because of
yes,
that confusion actually.
yeah. And yeah, I think it's awesome to have been witnessing this journey, Dan, and now you guys are moving from a load shedding app to something that does way more than that, and I'm quite excited to see what the future holds. And yeah, thanks so much for joining, Dan. I'm just going to put up the slide if anybody wants to get in touch, and also just some proof that you have some big name fans that follows your app.
Yeah. This is a fun one. Yeah. So if anyone's got any questions or if you want to chat, I'm happy for to reach out. But um, yeah, actually on Friday, this interview is going to continue. So Friday morning, check out weightroom.com. This interview with Kino and Andre is going to continue. Their servers got overloaded with the amount of traffic on Weightroom, and unfortunately, they had to end the interview early. Um, some might say it's because the load shedding app shared that they were having this conversation and they got a little bit too many users a little bit too quickly. Um, and it's more than likely true. We've done it to a few websites, and we're sorry. But yeah, this was Andre Doreta. It's one of my highlights of the year, actually. And he said he has to be careful about, you know, uh, giving out endorsements for companies, but he uses the EskomSePush app and he finds it works really well, which I really
That's
enjoyed.
awesome. So it's official. It's been confirmed. EskomSePush is getting used by Eskom to figure out when load shedding's happening. That's awesome.
we
Um,
we do actually have a good relationship with them. It's not an official one or anything that's in paperwork or anything like that, but we do have a very good friendly relationship with Eskom.
that's awesome.
And we try and help where we can, because
Yeah.
the better our information, the less load on Eskom, the less load on municipalities, so
Yes.
it can actually focus on fixing up the real problems.
That's awesome. Love that. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to see what happens with esp.info going forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This has been great.
All right. Thanks. So that was Dan Wells from EskomSePush, one of the founders from that app, and exciting journey that they've been on, turning a side hustle into a main hustle. Hey, this was the open conversation. We do research on trends at the intersection of business, technology, and entrepreneurship. And we save you 50 hours a month in trends research by reading our weekly 5-minute newsletter. If you want to sign up, head on over to the openletter.io, pop in your email address and your name, and by Thursday morning, you will get the latest lowdown on what's happening in the South African tech space and trends and opportunities for hustlers, entrepreneurs, or anybody working in technology that they can take on and make it their own. Thanks so much for joining and have a great day.